One of the most frequently asked questions that we get here at BEMA is about transcripts. Lots of people wanting to know with the podcast if we have transcripts of the dialogue and what's been said there. And there's a ton of really good reasons that people want transcripts. And some of them are less significant. People would just prefer to be able to interact with the material in written form rather than audio form. The ease of being able to quote something to go back and see exactly what was said. Then there are like some reasons where transcripts are like all of a sudden I start to get passionate about the need for transcripts. We continually have people reach out to us from the deaf community and hard of hearing, realizing that they can't listen to the podcast in audio form. What a legitimate reason for transcripts. Or so many of our groups that are in international and foreign settings, and the work that they do in so many of these cases to try to translate the podcast into another language. How much easier that becomes when you're working with transcripts. There's a ton of really good reasons that we need to be pursuing transcripts. Then there's a lot of like really complicated layers to the whole transcript conversation, and that is the amount of work to do it by hand. But today there's so much technology that basically takes audio and then dictates it into, like, in very few places you need to be doing transcript work by hand, but that creates a whole bunch of other layers. We were having a call just a few days before making this video with somebody who actually works in artificial intelligence and software that does exactly that. It takes audio and then translates it into written transcript form, and she was describing the intricate layers of it's just complex what ends up happening, and especially in something like this podcast, there's a ton of editing that still has to be done to take it from what a computer can do, from what technology can do, and make it to where it's actually that you can even consume it as written prose, but B, to actually have to go through that and make sure that what's being said on paper is really truly what was being communicated in the audio. Everything from the ums and the uhs and the well and the repetition. If you sit there and you say, you say like, say, if you write that out, that looks ridiculous. So there's just a lot of work that still has to be done. Long story short, transcripts is a monumental task that we just haven't been able to take on yet. But very recently, we've had more and more listeners volunteer their services with this, and we're getting closer. We're getting closer and closer and closer. In fact, very recently, we were contacted by somebody who's using some voice-to-text technology and then doing most of the editing himself. And that gets us very close to where essentially all we need to do is comb through those transcripts, make sure there's nothing there that we would change about what's being communicated or said, make sure that we can confirm their accuracy, and then release those. So essentially, what you may see in the months and years, this will be a big task even now. It will likely take years over time, but we will start combing through and releasing from the beginning as we do transcripts for every episode. And when we finally get those produced, you will likely see those linked in the show notes of every episode. At the bottom of the show notes there, you'll likely see a link that basically gives you the transcript for episode 2, transcript for episode 3, and you'll be able to have those. So if you don't see transcripts, it's because they're in process. We haven't been able to do anything up till now, but we do believe in the near future we're going to start to be able to begin that project. So stay tuned. We hope to be able to deliver on that. And thanks for asking the question.